Hello. In this video, I wanted to go through my process for building Gobo presets. Specifically, I've encountered quite a few times some other methods of working through this that I don't fully understand the thought process behind. I know they work for a lot of people. They don't work for me personally, to be kind of blunt about it. And I wanted to share why I run my process the way I do. This isn't me saying that I've got the only way that works by any means. This is just me explaining my own logic behind why I do things the way I do. So let's get started. So in particular, I notice on a lot of show files that there seem to be just, in my opinion, a lot of extraneous presets created for a given situation. For example, having an open Gobo preset for every individual wheel, and having your Gobo presets only affect the particular wheel that Gobo is on. For me, I don't understand the value of having a Gobo 1 preset that only has the Gobo 1 attribute in it, and Gobo 2 presets that only have the Gobo 2 preset in it, because the number of times that I'm going to want to have both Gobo 1 and Gobo 2 in at the same time are exceedingly rare. And in addition, if I am looking to stack Gobos on top of each other, that means that I'm looking for a very specific effect. And to me, that warrants its own preset, because I want whatever look that's creating, whatever specific output is coming out of the light as a result of that should have its own preset, so that when I want to recreate that look, I'm not bound by whatever particular Gobos worked best for that effect on that particular light. Because when I clone to another light, I might want to use two different Gobos for that than what I am cloning each of those individual Gobos to for their normal usage in the rig. And again, that's such a rare situation for me. I have very, very, very rarely stacked Gobos like that. To me, your presets should be based on the intention with which they will be used, rather than the technicality of what they're doing inside of the light. So like, as an additional example to that, if you've got an effect somewhere where you are snapping from one Gobo to the next, for me, even though those two Gobo presets are right next to each other, I move those into their own presets of, like, let's say Gobo Snap A, Gobo Snap B, so that when I'm cloning to other lights, I'm picking my main Gobos based on the texture they create in the air. But if I'm looking to create that snap back and forth effect, I need to pick those based off of, generally, two high output Gobos that are sitting right next to each other. That's going to be the main thing I'm looking for. If the best clone for a straight line is not next to my best clone for a star breakup, for example, but I've been using those two for my snap effect, which I probably wouldn't be doing. But anyways, I don't want to have to pick which one of these looks best for that output based on which one's right next to each other. So to recap all that, effect where Gobos are just going back and forth with adjacent slots, get their own palettes. And anything that's based on its texture in the air or on the stage gets its own separate palettes, even if they're hitting the same Gobo. Now, as I was mentioning earlier, I also don't understand needing to have just Gobo Wheel 1 in here, and just Gobo Wheel 2 in your next row for anything where Gobo Wheel 2 is the Gobo that is outputting. Because, again, I'm never going to be selecting two on top of each other. Two, it makes it more difficult to switch between them. If I'm just trying to bash through and look at what Gobo is most appropriate for the moment I'm working in, I don't want to have to go here and then go click some open Gobo Wheel 1 and then click here and then go open Gobo Wheel 2 and then go back to Gobo Wheel 1. If I can just click between my presets, that's what I'm going to be doing. In addition, it makes it much, much easier to clone. If you are using I lost my thought for a second. If you are cloning from a fixture where, for example, Gobo wheel 1 is the Gobo wheel that rotates into a fixture where Gobo wheel 2 is the one that rotates, you're going to want to have that palette that you are using for this rotating breakup available in both Gobo wheels, so that when you clone over, it makes it anywhere that you were using this rotating Gobo wheel from wheel 1, you can clone over into Gobo wheel 2 without having to do extra work. I've got a recast plugin coming out that can solve some of that, but still it's just easier if the original programming can handle it by the built-in clone processes. So yeah, with kind of that logic explained, I hope I've explained that in some level of detail that makes sense. Go through my process of actually creating those Gobo slots. So I'm not going to use the Mistrals. Unfortunately, the lights I'll be using, you can't. They don't really have their information in the MA profile, but it doesn't really matter for what we're covering. So I'm going to grab these Hurricanes, and I'm grabbing them because they have two rotating Gobo wheels, which will become relevant. So first thing I do is make my open Gobo preset. And the way I've built my macros for this, which I'll get into in a second, I don't actually have to activate both wheels. Right now I know that both Gobo wheel 1 and Gobo wheel 2 are open, and I'm intentionally going to not activate Gobo wheel 2 just to illustrate this. So my store Gobo slot macro, if I can click on it correctly, I go into a filter that's just the Gobo wheel, and then I store using all for selected, which means it's going to try to grab every possible attribute of the light that I have grabbed, except it's going to be filtered down by this filter, which we'll look at in a second. And then it's going to try to store that global, because a Gobo preset should always be global if it's going to be something that's going to match across all fixtures of the same type, which 98% of the time they will, with the exception of opposing rotates, for me at least. So let's go take a look at that filter real quick. So if I open up filters, Gobo wheel is just Gobo 1, Gobo 2, Gobo 3. So those are the only attributes that get allowed through. When I try to grab everything, it's getting filtered down to just these. So now, if I store Gobo slot, I'll just call this new open. And when I click on it, we can see already that there had been information that was added in as active on Gobo wheel 2, even though I had not activated any. And if I grab this, we can see that it pulls Gobo wheel 1 and Gobo wheel 2 into the programmer, because both of those are now stored into this preset. The same, now once that open has been created, again, I don't have to, I'm going to off both of these. So just starting from default, both of these are open but not active in the programmer. I'm going to pick one of these many circles that's available, 1.2, let's say. I'm going to use that same macro to create my Gobo preset, and we can see that when I select it, we can see information changing on Gobo wheel 1. If we go to Gobo wheel 2, we can see that we are selecting new presets even though it's open in both. And this means that, we'll start from open here, I'm going to pick something on Gobo wheel 2. And we can, oops, I used a normal store. And we can see that now, if I want to switch between something on Gobo wheel 1 to something on Gobo wheel 2, I don't have to worry about deactivating one wheel so that I can look at the other. It will always just grab the output of that. Again, if you want to do some layered things, create a separate preset for that. Now, my rotates. So I've gone through a bit of a process on this. There are some simpler ways to do it. I've set it up with some macros just to speed up the process in which I can create my rotate presets in a way that I like. So I'm going to go through that. So a lot of people, first off, will have a range of rotates for every individual wheel. Again, this is something that does not make sense to me. I will very rarely, very rarely need one wheel to be rotating a different way than the other wheel is. I'm generally going to have just one Gobo in at a time. So as a result, I would want to just be using the same rotates for whichever wheel is in. I don't care which wheel is rotating, I just care about the rotate speed. Again, these palettes should be built in my mind, the way I think, based on the intention rather than on the technical events happening in the fixture. So if I grab, for example, my opposing rotate medium, then I have Gobo wheel 2 and Gobo wheel 1 rotating at those speeds. So with that prefaced, I've gone through my process a little bit backwards. Most people will build the single direction rotates and then do every other light at each of these and then create their opposing rotates. I do it the opposite way. I'll create my opposing rotates first and then from that create my single directions. My logic for this, well, will be shown as we get into how I'm doing this. So I'll start from my stopped position. So I'm gonna go grab those hurricanes again. I'll put them at stopped, which is just Gobo wheel 1 at its stop position, Gobo wheel 2 at its stop position. I've got a store rotate macro. If we right click on that, we have another filter for Gobo rotate, which is the same concept as what we have for Gobo slot. Just Gobo wheel 1, 2, and 3 rotates are allowed through. And then I'll do an active for selected. Yeah, I don't do an all for selected on this one because there have been times where I'll be building Gobo wheel 1 and Gobo wheel 2 at separate moments and then storing them into the same preset. I don't do that anymore, but anyways, you could do an all for selected in theory with this. And then make sure it's global because again, I generally will try to make these global. And if there's not matching information, even if you tell it to store global, we can see that it will go ahead and force in selective information when it sees that there is not matching information for every light that is being stored in there. It is intelligent in that manner. Anyways, so to get my opposing rotates going, so we're starting from our stopped position and we can go ahead and store that in here. We'll merge that in. So we're starting from there. All right, I have macros as well to increase my rotate and, well, increase and decrease my rotate speeds. This could be accomplished on a single wheel at a time using an MA2 align groups of 2. So if I go down to MA2, do an align group of 2 and then do an align out, you could accomplish the same thing. Start from your stopped position, a line of 2, a line out, and then you spin your encoder and every other light will be moving at the same speed but in opposite directions. However, again, for me, since I want to have the same rotates available for each Gobo wheel, and since I personally have not encountered a light with multiple rotating Gobo wheels that uses different values for each wheel to determine its rotate speed, I will try to hit all Gobo wheels at once, which is where this macro comes into play. So I right click on this guy. I set a variable for my rotate adjustment speed, and this variable is used both in the rotate faster and the rotate slower, but it's only set in the rotate faster macro. So that if I decide later that I want to be moving at larger or smaller intervals, I just change it in one spot and all 4 lines that use it get updated. Unfortunately, this does seem to slow down the macro for some reason, but it's not something I do that often. It should be once per setup or once per day if you're going through festivals. Anyways, so reset my MA2. MA2 interleave 1.2. This means an interleave of 2 and you're selecting the first group out of that. MA2 interleave 2.2 is interleave of 2, selecting your second group out of that. So it's basically interleave of 2 and then hitting next again. From there, I will grab, and this is where I'm hitting all wheels at the same time. I'm hitting attribute anything named Gobo something underscore position. If you look at the names of these in the, oh Lord, where is it? It is attribute and encoder grouping, Gobo 1 here. We see the screen name is G1 and then the angled brackets out, but the library name, and this is how it will be referenced when you try to access it from command line, is Gobo1 underscore POS. Gobo 2 is Gobo 2 underscore POS. Same thing with Gobo 3. Same thing with Gobo 4. Sorry, I had a call come in. So that is what I am hitting with all those. By by putting a star into that position in the macro, I'm hitting any attribute whose name has Gobo something underscore POS, which will grab all of my possible Gobo wheels. Did I clear out? I guess I cleared out. I did not clear out. Why can't I see things? I'm going to clear for a moment, come back here. Well, I don't know what it's doing now. I made it angry. Oh no. All right, there we go. So anyways, every other one goes plus that amount, and then you go to the next part of it and it will go minus that amount. If that doesn't make sense, I'm just going to click this guy a few times and we see the first fixture in our selection is down to 70.1. If I go over to our fixture sheet over here, we can see that every other light is at, I guess it's showing me the last fixture of my selection with that value. Yeah, must be. Okay. Like, for example, 301, 3, 5, 7 are all at 80.1 on both wheels. 302, 4, 6, 8, so on are at 70.1. So they are moving the same amount in opposite directions. From there, we use our store rotate macro to create our presets. And we'll rotate a little faster. Oops. Store rotate here. Rotate a little bit faster. Store rotate here. And we can see, even though I am putting in to store global, that we are getting the little S over here because it is seeing mismatched information, and therefore some of that information is being forced in there as selective. That's normal. If you're going to be doing opposing rotates, there is no way for that to be global because each light is having to do something different. So there's a couple of opposing rotates. Now to turn this into single rotates, what I will do is, so first off, let's just, so you can see what is happening on the fixture sheet here. I've got value only showing, and we have maintained every other light doing the same thing. So rather, all odds are doing the same thing, all evens are doing the same thing, but odds are not doing the same as evens. I'm going to clear out. I'm going to grab my hurricanes again, and I'm going to do MA next, and then hit next, which will give me just all of my odds. From there, I will grab our first opposing rotate. But since I grabbed every other, we have matching values here. Now, with both Gobo Wheel 1 and Gobo Wheel 2 activated on that, I'm going to store rotate into a single direction. And I'm going to grab this one with just those lights and store rotate into a single direction. And we will be keeping entirely global information because as I click through these all have matching information because I have only my odds, which all odds had the same rotate value. Then when I'm done with that, I will, actually I do have active for selected. So selected makes a difference. So I'm going to hit next again. I'm going to put them at this guy. So now with only even selected, we see that we have matching values, but we're going down this time instead of up. So we have matching values, so now I'm going to store rotate into the opposing direction, merge in there. And then I'm going to hit our next one, store rotate in the opposing direction, merge there. Next one, store rotate, next direction, merge there, and so on down the line. And then we get our opposing direction. So now if I clear out again, I grab all hurricanes. I'm going to put them all in this slow right preset. We will see that they all have the same value. I'll put them all at the slow left preset, and they all have the same value on both Gobo wheels. Yeah, I mean, that's the whole process. I hope I've explained that in a way that actually makes sense as to the reasoning behind why I do it the way that I do. Again, this is by no means to shit on other programmers that don't do it this way. It does drive me nuts when I'm using somebody else's file and it's not set up the way I'm used to. Again, I can be a little bit neurotic about that. However, it's not a down talking thing. It's just I've arrived at this for it. It is a way that works very well for me, and it seems very logical to me. And therefore I like it very much, and I've gotten very accustomed to it, so it can be a little difficult to work with other ways of doing it. But again, I kind of just wanted to share that with the world. If other people have things to add on to it, or they can use that as a launching point for maybe something better that I haven't thought of, something that works well for them, by all means, as long as it works well for you and it's possible for somebody else to understand and work with, as other people will eventually have to come into your show file, I guess, depending on your work. I guess that's all that matters. Don't program like a jerk. Try to make it usable, I guess. I don't know. There's some big philosophy thing that can be thrown in here, and I don't have it. But I do have coffee, so I'm going to drink that, and I'm going to shut up. And I hope this has been helpful to somebody. Yep, that's it. Bye.